Good afternoon. Today I'll be presenting my paper, Making Writing Meaningful, a Case for Rhetorical Dexterity. I became a teacher because I believe in education. I believe in the positive effects that can come from learning in general. Education can serve as a transformative force, giving people the chance to move beyond the circumstances into which they were born. Language and our ability to use and manipulate it plays a huge role in preparing students to do just that. We want our students to leave our classrooms with the skills needed to be successful, both within and outside of academia. But does the prevalent English curriculum, with its focus on formal, academic, and standardized English that's written for a singular audience of instructor, really prepare them for life beyond the classroom? I propose that we can and must do better. Through qualitative research, I seek to highlight the need for change from traditional English curricula to one that more fully promotes rhetorical dexterity in order to best prepare our students for success. Fair or not, people are judged by how they speak and write. That judgment is most often based on context. Writing a formal memo with text speak, for example, could have significant backlash. The idea of modification based on context and need has been a part of classic rhetoric since Aristotle. Bazell and Herzberg note, the rhetorical occasion always includes an audience, and the speaker must consider the motives that are likely to influence audiences. Rhetorical literacy, the ability to analyze the demands of a given situation and adapt your writing given your understanding and purpose of audience, is an essential skill that must go hand in hand with writing instruction. Writing a research paper should be different from an email to a boss or a text message to a friend, just as vocabulary and tone should vary based on the audience. Despite the fact that situational writing is often imperative to workplace success, the English classroom rarely addresses it, focusing instead on mostly academic contexts. We must teach students the importance of situationally adaptive writing. Scenario-based, audience-focused writing is an approach that can make English courses more meaningful and effective for our students. In order for our students to get the most out of English courses, to make them more than just a box to check on their path to a diploma, we must get them invested. Paulette Golden, author of Contextualized Writing, Promoting Audience-Centered Writing Through Scenario-Based Learning, notes that relevance stimulates passion and perseverance. Students who believe the course material is relevant to their lives will pay attention, be intrinsically motivated, and begin to see the transferability and application of content skills to other disciplines. Teachers, of course, know this to be true. In fact, we likely tell something of this effect to our students regularly. Unfortunately, students do not always grasp how the class's intended learning outcomes will benefit them after course completion. As trite as the phrase has become, focusing on the why is an important part of creating buy-in with students. If we cannot make our lessons relevant in their minds, they're quickly forgotten. This means showing them applications of writing that they may need in their futures, whether they intend to further their education or not. Speaking and writing in the real world vary greatly from academia. They all require a variety of writing skills. Students have to believe that the content is important and that they will use it in their futures. By teaching students how to break down the context and then use this knowledge to meet their needs, we can promote critical thinking, ensure transferability to the workplace, and get students more invested in our lessons. For students who are working towards their future, one way to create such buy-in is to relate the writing that students are doing in the classroom to their ability to thrive in the workplace. Surveys reported in Writing, a Ticket to Work or a Ticket Out for the National Commission on Writing for America's Families, Schools, and Colleges found that 2/3 of salaried employees in large American companies have some writing responsibility, and that people who cannot write and communicate clearly will not be hired and are unlikely to last long enough to be considered for a promotion. Jeffrey Jablonski, the author of Business and Technical Writing, notes that most employers complain that their employees can't write. 30% of all business memos and emails are written solely to clarify earlier written communication that didn't make sense. This translates into an estimated $225 billion a year in lost productivity. With this in mind, teachers can use a learning approach in which hypothetical but realistic scenarios are used to encourage students to explore subjects in the context of real world. Ability to tailor one's communication to a specific context is a huge part of success, and rhetorical literacy implements strategies to help writers adjust for individual circumstances. It involves analyzing the situation in order to create the most effective final product. When planning documents, people should analyze key questions such as, what's the purpose of my writing? Who is my audience? How does the context affect what I write? And what image do I want to project? Barry Kroll calls this the rhetorical perspective in his article, Writing for Readers, 3 Perspectives on Audience. Much like Plato and Aristotle, believers in the rhetorical perspective believe that writers, like successful speakers, must analyze the audience's beliefs, traits, and attitudes so that their messages can be adapted to particular characteristics of specific audiences. Though this may come naturally to some, many novice writers do not consider their audience and therefore do not select the best strategies to connect with them and achieve their goal. Catherine Malloy, a writing professor from the University of Rhode Island, notes that rhetorical dexterity as a model may help teachers and scholars break out of this binary of standard versus non-standard English and teach all students more effectively. By emphasizing context, students can enhance their writing skills while retaining their cultural identities and linguistic rights, using each as needed for a given situation, and thus bridging the gap between prescriptive and descriptive English. We live in a diverse and multicultural world, and language is just as varied. In Hybridity, a lens for understanding mestizo writers, Louise Rodriguez-Connell calls for transcultural rhetoric as a way of engaging with multiple cultures. While standard English may be called for in some situations, that is not always the case. Knowing the intended audience and purpose can allow the writer to intentionally choose the style of writing, tone, vocabulary, and even detail needed. Analyzing these factors will help determine the type of language skills to be utilized. Transcultural rhetoric allows for code switching and a fluidity of movement between 2 languages that can be used to best meet one's writing goals. In a friendly letter, vernacular may allow a writer to better connect with their audience. This, however, is not something that many students inherently know or at least apply to writing. We must teach students not only the importance of, but also how to analyze the rhetorical situation so that the audience and ultimate purposes can be achieved. Scenario-based assignments can help students discover how to prepare for a task and best meet expectations while simultaneously creating buy-in and making our lessons more effective. Paulette Golden, a composition and rhetoric professor at San Jacinto College, studied how traditional classroom instruction compares to scenario-based writing instructions. Golden, as well as others in her field, saw a need for students to make connections between college writing and other rhetorical situations in academia, life, and notably the workplace. Yet they often faced difficulties with transferring writing skills to contexts outside of the composition classroom. In both the pilot and full study, 2 composition courses used scenario-based learning in preparation for both traditional and SBL essay assessments, while the control group used traditional teacher-led lectures in preparation for the same assessments. Despite her concession that more research needs to be done, particularly because of the small sample size of her study, Golden found that students in the experimental group were better able to apply concepts outside of the composition classroom, as well as increased critical thinking, analytical reasoning, synthesis, and problem solving. Jablonski's book also encourages the use of contextual learning. He takes a project-based approach to learning how to write. Traditionally, learning has been all too passive. Students are expected to memorize and recall information rather than show their ability to apply abstract concepts to concrete problems. He continues to explain that his research has shown that students who participate in SBL gain a greater depth of understanding and are more likely to apply the principles they learn to similar situations in the future as they write in the workplace. This is our ultimate goal, to prepare students for life after education. If scenario-based learning can help us to better meet this goal, we must do so. To write effectively in various situations, students must focus on their audiences. Barry Kroll, a professor of composition rhetoric at Lehigh University, believes that writers' consideration of the audience exerts an important influence on written communication. The rhetorical perspective, as described by Kroll, is what Jablonski calls a part of the situation analysis. Before writing, students must determine the primary and secondary audiences, their background and reading levels, and even their potential expectations and needs. This analysis is important because a careful consideration of the intended audience, together with an analysis of strategies for appealing to that audience's convictions and concerns, can help students achieve their rhetorical goals. This extends to the presentation of ideas as well. Connell suggests that rhetorical intelligence that encourages shifting among rhetorical gestures according to the needs of the situation is a practice that allows students to grasp the importance of concepts such as audience and context along with diverse rhetorical gestures. While Kroll notes limitations, such as the fact that we may not know or be able to find out some things about our audiences, even recognizing what we do not know can help guide our writing. Kroll also details the informative and social perspectives on audience. When trying to inform rather than fully persuade the audience, writers must utilize many of the same previously discussed strategies. Understanding the reader's background and reading level becomes incredibly important because, for comprehension to occur efficiently, the reader needs to be able to reach semantic closure quickly, and therefore omit needless words and keep related words together. Likewise, utilizing transitions to show connections can help enhance reader understanding. Analyzing the audience helps writers to facilitate the intake of information, designing a text so that its readers will encounter few obstacles to their understanding and will comprehend the text with a minimal amount of effort. Similarly, Foss and Griffin, authors of Beyond Persuasion, Proposal for an Invitational Rhetoric, suggest that an audience analysis is useful even if persuasion is not the intention. Instead of adapting one's communication to the expected resistance of the audience, they identify possible impediments to the creation of understanding and seeking to minimize or neutralize them so that they do not remain impediments. The social perspective is a bit more psychological, requiring readers to switch the focus from the egocentric perspective of what the writer needs, thinks, or feels to what the reader needs and how the information will be interpreted. This is especially problematic among novice writers who struggle to account for the reader's views and background knowledge. Mina Shaughnessy finds many evidences of the egocentricity of the apprentice writer, an orientation that is reflected in the assumption that the reader understands what's going on in the writer's mind. All of these are part of Jablonski's Principles of Effective Professional Writing. He notes that your writing should focus on the needs and concerns of the reader, show empathy for the reader's point of view, provide reasons for whatever it is you're asking them to do, and be polite and friendly. Similarly, writing should be reader-based prose, or writing that makes explicit the information a reader needs and expects to find. Even more important, understanding an audience allows us to ensure that a safe environment is created. When audience members feel their sense of order is threatened or challenged, they're more likely to cling to familiar ways of thinking and be less open to understanding the perspective of others. Without an audience analysis, writers may not reach their full potential or effectiveness. It's clear that if teachers hope to make students effective writers, both in and out of school, teaching them to be audience-focused is an essential skill. Arming students with the tools to navigate diverse rhetorical situations and audiences they'll be likely to encounter beyond the academic setting is vital. Scenario-based learning may be one of the best tools that we have to teach rhetorical dexterity, as it embeds students within authentic contexts mirroring real-world scenarios. Scenarios require students to think beyond the general audience of whoever's grading this and learn to modify their writing on the rhetorical analysis of the purpose and audience. They'll learn to use language to their advantage in a way that goes beyond solely academic writing, better preparing students for their futures and likely enhancing engagement. In Writing for Real People, a client-centered approach, Jenny Cooper, an English professor at Southeast Missouri State University, moved beyond scenario-based learning and took it to the next level. She advocates for a client-focused method in writing education, stressing the importance of adapting writing to fulfill the requirements and anticipations of real-world audiences. Her approach, in which students worked for real people, journalists, government officials, millionaires, business leaders, faculty members, and local citizens, as researchers, was incredibly successful. Students were engaged, focused, and proud of their work. Cooper never received anything but praise from both clients and students. While such a project requires more time and attention from the instructor, it has been exceedingly positive for all participants. As one of the students told Cooper, writing for a real person is a lot more fun than writing for an English teacher. Her success highlights that the more real an experience is, the more meaningful an assignment becomes. The transition to scenario-based, audience-focused assignments may not be an easy one. As a species, humans often prefer to stick with the status quo. We're comfortable in what we know. To begin the conversation, we should be open with students regarding both the plan for the course and writing assignments, as well as the reasons why it may be different from their previous English courses. In fact, sharing many of the statistics and quotes previously mentioned could help at least prepare them for the change and at best make students more invested in the writing and learning process. The ultimate goal of education is to prepare students for success. Promoting rhetorical dexterity through scenario-based, audience-focused learning is vital to preparing students for their futures. Authentic context and audience analysis activities can empower students to navigate diverse rhetorical challenges with skill and finesse in ways that ultimately allow them to meet their needs. By intertwining real-world scenarios with writing instruction and classroom implementation, teachers may be able to bridge the gap between theory and practice, offering practical insights and essential skills to our students. Teaching in a way that promotes rhetorical dexterity could have a significant impact on enhancing students' communicative abilities and preparing them for the multifaceted demands of real-world writing. Thank you.